and share my screen. Oh, great. Hi, guys. Welcome to our presentation on Graduate Study Award options. We all know about the Rhodes and Marshall scholarships, but we want to bring your attention to a couple of opportunities that you may have not considered. I also thought this video would be very fun, but now I'm finding it very disorienting to look at, so I'm going to advance to the next slide. Okay, so in this presentation, we'll detail a couple of non-Rhodes Marshall postgraduate funding opportunities that will permit you to study abroad as a graduate student, or at least to conduct independent research projects abroad. So just to mention a couple here, and we'll cover more than this in the actual presentation, we have things like the U.S. Fulbright Student Program, the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, the St. Andrews Society Scholarship in the state of New York, the American Scandinavian Foundation Fellowships. There's others, Yenching Academy at Peking University, Schwartzman Scholarships. We'll talk about the internal Cambridge and Oxford scholarships. We'll talk about the internal Georgetown scholarships, and we'll talk about a cool opportunity to study in France, the Michel David Weil Scholarship. So I'm going to advance the slide and then turn it over to Colleen to talk a little bit about the first scholarship we want to, oh no, we're doing Fulbright first, not Gates Cambridge, but I'll start by talking a little bit about the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. Okay, so if you've come in for advising, probably I've mentioned the Fulbright Student Program to you. The Fulbright U.S. Student Program is probably the most capacious scholarship program that we advise on here at the Center for Research and Fellowships. It's really not even best considered as an individual program. The Fulbright U.S. student grants go to over 150 countries and come in three main categories. You can either conduct an independent research project, you can pursue postgraduate study, or you can help teaching English through an English teaching assistantship. But there are a number of Fulbrights that don't fall into even these categories. There are, for instance, the Mexican binational business grants, which will see you working in several different business organizations in Mexico. And there are a number of other specific disciplinary Fulbrights. There's arts Fulbrights. There's, Fulbrights that are targeted at public health and a number of others beyond that. The capaciousness and variety of the Fulbright program leads it to be an appealing option for many Georgetown students. Something we say at the center and something that I believe is that there is a Fulbright for everybody. I'm sure I've told some of you guys that already in advising, and if you haven't heard it yet, you'll hear it again. Now, this means that if you're considering applying for the Rhodes and Marshall, almost certainly you should be at least entertaining the possibility of a Fulbright application. The most obvious thing would be to apply to the university that you intend to go to for your Marshall and seek Fulbright support. Fulbright has a number of grants for graduate study in the UK, and many of them overlap with things that you might be pursuing for the Marshall. The one thing I will say about that, however, is that the Fulbright UK study grants are extraordinarily competitive and are only distributed to a few select competitors. In fact, the raw numbers put some of the Fulbright UK graduate study grants on par with, if not slightly more competitive than the Rhodes and Marshall Scholarship. This means that probably, if you have a given disciplinary interest, something that you should entertain is a Fulbright in some other country where there is perhaps less intensive competition, because we find that Fulbrights are an extraordinarily desirable opportunity to have had for subsequent fellowship applications. For instance, Rhodes and Marshall would be very happy to see you have a Fulbright on your resume. And so if there's any other country that you would like to go to, if there are any other Fulbright grants besides the UK study ones that catch your eye, then it would be those that I would recommend. And I think that while it is an additional amount of work to put together a successful Fulbright application, and it's not something that you should neglect or leave to the last minute, I would recommend to almost every Rhodes Marshall applicant that if they can, they should apply to some Fulbright somewhere. Probably not in the UK, but maybe. And if you can find a Fulbright grant that works with your interests, then it could be a valuable step in preparing a reapplication packet for Rhodes Marshall. If things don't work out the first time, maybe you go and do a Fulbright and then come back a more competitive applicant. Every year, we have people who take that exact trajectory. Georgetown's also very good at producing Fulbrights. We are the top producer nationwide and have been for 4 of the last 6 years. That's really exciting to us at the center, and I think that we can do yet better still. Certainly, if you're competitive for the Rhodes and Marshall scholarships, you're competitive for a Fulbright U.S. Student Program grant of some type, and consequently, I think that this is a program that may be a really good fit for your interests. I'll talk a little bit about timeline while we're here, just because there are so many opportunities with Fulbright and because it is such a central interest of our center, I do want to talk a little bit more about what our process involves. So like the Rhodes and Marshall, Fulbright is a scholarship that requires internal nomination, but the process is a little bit different. So to get R imprimatur for your Fulbright application, there's not a selective process, you know. What we ask you to do instead is, like you will for Rhodes and Marshall, inform yourself about Fulbright and the variety of awards and options available. You can watch any of our Fulbright webinars, and the Fulbright organization puts out a number of their own as well. We ask that you also self-enroll and go through the Fulbright Canvas course, which will cover in comprehensive detail the offerings of the Fulbright program and the requirements of a Fulbright application. You'll have the whole summer to work on the Fulbright application. It's not due as early as the Rhodes and Marshall, but then you will submit it to us by clicking submit in the portal on the 1st of September, or ideally before then. And that application will be reviewed by us. We distribute our sort of seal of approval to almost every Fulbright application. It would have to be extenuating circumstances that would prevent you from advancing at this round. And then your application will be unsubmitted to you, and then you will submit the final time to Fulbright on October 8th. So the process is a little bit behind the Rhodes Marshall process, and as a result, it does work well with the Rhodes Marshall application timeline. One thing, though, that I will note is that because it is later, sometimes people are liable to wait until the last minute to start putting together their their Fulbright application, and as a result, Fulbright gets neglected. If you're interested in Fulbright, as I've encouraged you all to be, then what I would exhort you is to not wait on getting your Fulbright stuff together. The summer will be very busy for all of you. Many of you will be working. Many of you will be conducting research. And those of you who are doing neither of those things, I'm sure will find other commitments to take up your time. One of those commitments might be a Rhodes and Marshall internal nomination application. That can be extraordinarily time consuming as well. But don't wait on Fulbright, and consider it if it is at all of interest to you. Now I will pass it over to my colleague Colleen, and she's going to talk a little bit about the Gates Cambridge Scholarship.
Thanks, Jonathan. So the Gates Cambridge Scholarship is another one that you'll hear us often talking about in a lot of these information sessions and workshops over the course of like the next month or so, because it is another scholarship that provides funding to go to the United Kingdom for graduate study. This is a program that was established by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in October of 2000 to provide students with a scholarship to Cambridge University specifically. And so students that are interested in applying to the Gates Cambridge can be any citizen, right, so long as you're outside of the UK, and interested in pursuing a full-time course at Cambridge University. And so this is an opportunity for students to, you can also, in addition to a one-year program, do a 2-year research-only degree or do research or work leading up to a PhD. So there are a few different options, but most students end up pursuing like a 1-year program at Cambridge. I'm actually going to drop a link to Gates Cambridge website into the chat here. I also dropped some information on the Fulbright. So this is one of those programs that you do have to be nominated by our office, and it would honestly behoove you to kind of utilize a lot of these workshops to help you, really working towards those similar goals, and things of that nature, given the purpose of the scholarship. And so if you're interested in doing that, you can kind of review more information on the Gates Cambridge website. The next one that we're going to talk about is the Churchill Scholarship. And so this is another scholarship that, second, Jonathan, do you mind moving on to the next slide? Thank you. 1 second, y'all, sorry. There it is. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Excuse me. The Churchill Scholarship is, again, another scholarship that will provide you with funding to go to the UK and specifically Churchill College at Cambridge University, again, to pursue graduate study. And so this is one that is only open to US citizens. You have to be either a current senior or an alumni who has graduated within the previous 12 months. And specifically looking at STEM programs. So you would have had to be had a STEM major as an undergraduate and at least 3.95 plus GPA. This is a scholarship that was set up by Sir Winston Churchill, as one would assume based on the name, and specifically looking at the ways that, similar to the Marshall Scholarship, providing or with the purpose of continuing to establish better relations between the US and the UK kind of following World War II, and specifically looking to advance the relations on both sides of the pond as far as kind of the continuing advances of science and technology, especially if we think about World War II, right? Like, in the following years, there was a huge boom in science and STEM fields. And so that has just kind of continued to, continue to develop that relationship today.
All right, terrific. Sorry about the PowerPoint shenanigans. I don't know what's happening. I'm not touching any button on my keyboard or my mouse at all. And it was not advancing, and then it just rapidly advanced through every slide. Did that also shut off the screen share right there?
It did.
Oh my God. Okay.
Do you want me to pull?
I truly did not even touch the machine. So that's frustrating, and I apologize to everybody. Okay. Let me just restart this. Okay. Sorry about that. All right.
And let me tell you, I'm going to drop some more information on the Churchill Scholarship in the chat. Oh, Jonathan's favorite.
Yeah, this is my favorite. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about this one. The last thing also I'll say about just jumping off the back of what Colleen was saying about the Gates, Cambridge, and Churchill, right? So Gates, Cambridge does have a slight preference for PhD applicants. So they reserve 2/3 of their slots for people who are trying to pursue doctoral study. That makes it a little bit more challenging to apply to if you're interested in just a master's. But every year we have people win for the master's. We had a winner this year, Vika Height of the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. It doesn't receive the same fanfare sometimes as the Rhodes Marshall, but I think it's a really comparable opportunity and something you should definitely consider if you're considering one of those other two scholarships. Churchill, we've really struggled. We've had maybe one Churchill in the last 11 years. And it really is sort of a Jimmy Neutron scholarship. You really do have to be sort of like a STEM whiz. That's the profile that they're looking for the Churchill. So if you're somebody who's really, really sort of engaged on the STEM side of things, that might be something to consider. Now, I'm excited to talk about my alma mater here, the St. Andrew Society of the State of New York Scholarship Program. So if you have any remote claim to Scottish heritage, and you're a senior or going to be a senior at the time of application, then I would, really exhort you to consider this scholarship. I think it's undersubscribed. I don't think enough people apply to it. And I think as a result, it can be a really great opportunity to get some funding to study in the United Kingdom, specifically in Scotland. This scholarship funds study at any sort of Scottish university and is quite generous. It's $35,000 a year, which is more than enough to support yourself in addition to paying any tuition and fees that the university may ask from you. you need a 3.7 to be competitive, and have a sort of interest, like all these scholarships, in making a social impact. And specifically, the scholarship is interested in some connection, some why for Scotland specifically, like maybe the Mitchell used to be, or like some of the Rhodes constituencies. There is this sort of geographic focus where there's a question not just of how you're going to impact the world, but how you're going to impact Scotland and why Scotland and what your connection is to Scotland. Um, there, I think, is a lot of Georgetown students who would be a good fit for the scholarship. And I think every year we struggle to find applications. So, if you have a Scottish friend, if you have somebody in your life who is maybe, interested in going to Scotland, tell them to consider the scholarship. There's also, and I think this is another one that is really neglected and undersung, right, is the American Scandinavian Foundation Scholarship. So these are really great opportunities for any American aged 18 to 28 to go to any of the Nordic countries and study, and either study towards a degree or more typically complete a research project. You can go to, more than one country, I believe up to 4, during your grant period, and the grants are for $25,000 for the duration of a year. We don't have usually in a given year any applications to the scholarship. I think it's another one that is extraordinarily underapplied to, and as a result, it's something you should definitely consider. Many Georgetown students I know have some connection to Scandinavia. Many Georgetown students go to Scandinavian countries for study abroad. There's a lot of exciting work being done there. There's a lot of really interesting research across a range of fields. This could be a really great opportunity to go do something super cool for a year and then maybe go on to another more well-known scholarship or fellowship. Yeah, here's a little bit more about it. They also have short-term research projects. So if you're interested in just going for 1 to 3 months to any of the Nordic countries, which they count as Denmark, Greenland, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Norway, Sampi, and Sweden, then you're able to go to any one of those countries and pursue research or creative arts projects. So it's a really capacious scholarship or fellowship, and something that not nearly enough students consider. We always have probably a dozen applicants to these Fulbright countries every year. If you're going to apply to Fulbright to go here, you should also apply for one of these as well.
So we often also get a lot of interest in both the Schwarzman and Yenching Academy scholarships. So these are 2 scholarships that will provide students with an opportunity to study in China. So the Schwarzman is a 1-year program. It's fully funded for 11 months, and students attend. And I apologize, I know I'm going to mispronounce this. And my best friend, who's been studying Chinese since I've literally known him 15 years ago, will be on my butt. And mostly because it's a tonal language. But the Schwarzman Scholars give students an fully funded 11-month master's program in global affairs at Tsinghua University in Beijing. And I really hope I got that right. I'm gonna make him test me in next
Any Chinese speakers in the audience today? Do we know if
Did I do it?
Sounded good to me.
Maybe I'll get a thumbs up. Yes, Benny, thank you. Okay, thanks. Thank you for the vote of confidence. Anyway, so the Schwarzman Scholars, as I said, provides a fully funded 11-month scholarship for a master's degree in global affairs. And so this is primarily for students who have finished. You must have finished your undergraduate degree by the time that you are starting the scholarship. So you do have to have graduated. You do also have to be proficient in English, though there are no citizenship or nationality requirements. There is a separate application cycle for both of these, depending on your citizenship. If you are a citizen of mainland China, so like the People's Republic of China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, And I believe for Yuncheng, there might be one other, let me double check really quickly, that have a separate application timeline and process. All of the application materials are the same. I know it is the same for Yuncheng. However, the application timeline is a little bit different for folks coming from those areas versus folks that are coming from other areas of the world. The Schwarzman, anything else in terms of, no. So I do want to note that the Schwarzman is a scholarship that we currently, or actually both of these, we don't run a full process the same way that we do for the Rhodes and Marshall, but we do provide ad hoc advising. So if you're interested in either of these scholarships, letting us know at the center, and if and when we have the time and bandwidth to assist with the application development process, we will. In particular, though, for anyone that has received an interview for either of these scholarships, especially, please let us know, and we are happy to provide advising again as we are available. Both of these are programs that you would apply to in the fall. So for our graduating, well, for our juniors in the audience, if you have any interest in these, please, do let us know in the fall. Yenching Academy of Peking University, again, you will have finished your undergraduate degree. This scholarship provides a either 1 or 2 year program within at Peking University, and the track that you're following, every student receives a master's degree in China studies. However, the Yenching does have, I believe, 5 different tracks, including primarily within the humanities and social sciences, that you customize your track based on the interdisciplinary courses that are available through the program. Though while all of the courses are taught in English, there is an encouragement to have at least a basic level of Mandarin language acquisition beforehand, just again to help folks sort of acclimate to your time in China, while also just allowing you the opportunity to continue to network with other folks.
So the Michelle David Wheel is another scholarship that we provide ad hoc advising for. Now, this is a scholarship that will fund your study for a year-long master's at the French university, sometimes referred to as France's MIT Sciences Po. So this is a scholarship that is available only to a select number of universities. I believe there's something on the order of 30 institutions that are permitted or invited to apply to the scholarship. Georgetown is one of them. It makes it an exciting opportunity for any Georgetown student who's interested in studying in France or studying in any of the disciplines in which Sciences Po is a preeminent institution. The scholarship, again, is another one that I think is a little bit consequently undersubscribed, with only 30 possible applications. Competition is artificially limited, and therefore it means that, there's a much higher chance relative to, for instance, the Rhodes or Marshall, that you could actually win one of these. I think this is one that I'd love to see more interest in as well, generally, because of that relatively limited application pool. So, again, all you have to do is be a U.S. citizen and currently enrolled at a eligible Sciences Po partner institution, have at least a 3.7, be aged 19 to 25, and then be accepted into an eligible Sciences Po master's program. Every year we have a little bit of interest for this scholarship. I think most years we do put forward a nominee. We're only permitted to put forward one. But I think that as we spread the word about it more, I hope this is a scholarship that we see more interest in and can find increasingly better fits for. Now, I'll talk a little bit too about the other ways that you can get some money to go to Cambridge and Oxford specifically, right? So obviously the most famous way you can get funding to go to Oxford is the Rhodes Scholarship. But if you do like we're telling you to do and fall in love with a specific Oxford degree program and end up really wanting to go there, you can be in a tough situation at the end of the internal application process or at the end of the full application season if you don't secure an opportunity to apply or one of the scholarships themselves. But what I would encourage you to nonetheless do is look at what's available on Oxford and Cambridge's web pages. Cambridge has the Cambridge Trust Scholarship Finder, and Oxford has the A to D of scholarships. And both of these web pages offer upwards of 100 internal scholarship applications or opportunities for both Cambridge and Oxford. There's a huge range of these, and a lot of them are very specific. They're disciplinarily specific or background specific, and so they're not all going to be something that you're eligible for. But I went to a presentation from Cambridge's graduate school last fall, and something they mentioned is that 68% of Cambridge graduate students end up receiving funding for completing their graduate program, right? Now, that's much, much higher than the rest of the UK. And the reason for that is all these internal scholarships. There's so many of them that we're not aware of, but a couple, and I'll highlight a couple. But I encourage you, if you really found yourself wedded to a specific program, to at least, before you count yourself out, look through what's possible, because you might find something that gets very few applications and that can get you a little bit of money to successfully go and complete that program. Just a couple to mention. The Oxford Clarendon Scholarship is their sort of most prominent internal one. The Cambridge Trust scholarships are the equivalent at Cambridge. These are something that you are put forward for by your advisor. So one of the reasons that we encourage you to reach out and start forming relationships with the people at the universities that you might be interested in going to is for this reason. Those people can have a role in securing you funding in the event of your failure to be selected for a Rhodes or Marshall scholarship, right? If you have an advisor who's really excited to work with you, then they might not be able to get you funding immediately, but what they can do is they can forward your name for consideration for these internal scholarships from Oxford and Cambridge, and can maybe, you know, bring out an opportunity for you to still go there, still receive funding, and still be able to go on this, you know, journey that you've identified and dreamt about as you've been encouraged to do by your CRF advisors all summer. So this is something to definitely be aware of. Now, there's also a couple every year Georgetown internal scholarships that are available for Rhodes and Marshall nominees. Now, you'll learn more about the process for these in the event of your selection for an internal nomination, but the thing that I want to highlight today, and the thing that you should know going into the internal nomination process, is that these scholarships, you need to apply for internal nomination and to be eligible for, right? So we have two scholarships, the Healy and the Albritton. Both of them fund study at Oxford. And if you're interested in winning either of those, two of them are dispersed every year. You should definitely apply for internal nomination, because that is a prerequisite for your being eligible for either of these scholarships. Just something you should know as we sort of start ramping up this process. Now, finally, there's a number of other opportunities that I'll turn it over to Colleen to talk a little bit about.
So the opportunities that are listed here, you'll also find on the open fellowships or additional fellowships section of our website. And so what does that mean? Those are currently programs that do not require university nomination. And so you do not have to be nominated by either our office or another office here on campus. These are programs that you can just apply directly to that still allow some kind of academic or professional development, and often both outside of the United States. And so All of these programs are really great opportunities to explore if you are interested in studying, doing research, or studying or doing research abroad. Bourne and the CLS in particular focus on very much on language acquisition, whereas the others are a combination often of study and an internship, or study and maybe some language learning, or in some cases just pursuing a graduate degree program. Each of them are great opportunities for students depending on what your interests are, what your goals are. I think one of the most important things to remember and to focus on, regardless of which fellowship opportunity you're applying to, is that you are applying to the ones that make the most sense for you. Whether that is, thinking about whether that is pursuing graduate study, research opportunities, internship opportunities, or maybe even a combination thereof. I think something to really think about and take into consideration as you are determining, right, not just a fellowship to apply to, but even your plans post graduation. What are the things that you want to do long term, and where are the gaps in your current experience, whether that's knowledge gaps in terms of your education that you are going to need further study to fill. Do you have, in terms of your discipline, in terms of the types of jobs that you're aiming for, at least in the next 5 years? Do you have maybe the requisite education, but you need additional experience, and so an internship is a great idea, or those programs that provide internship opportunities are great ideas to pursue, or maybe it's a combination of those things. Maybe through some of these programs you'll be able to gain both knowledge and skills through a combined experience that will then allow you to kind of further yourself within the overall competition for your interests, career interests, education interests, or combination, right? And so just kind of taking those things into account as you are exploring all of these different options. Some of these programs, even if we are not or if we are unable to provide advising at this time, we will direct you to, either discussing these opportunities with an advising dean or a faculty member, in particular faculty mentors, right? Thinking about those individuals who have, pursued either a similar career or the same career that you yourself are interested in. Talk to those folks, right? See what their pathway was like, especially recent alumni. Talking to recent alumni who are doing work, who are in spaces that you yourself are interested in exploring. Working with them, talking to them about the things that they also considered as they were looking into different programs. There's a question in the chat. Oh, great question, Jessica. Before I answer Jessica's question, anything, Jonathan, that you want to add before we open up for questions?
No, I think we're good to open up for questions. The last thing that I would say, though, is hopefully we've touched on some opportunities that will be of interest to all of you. Regardless of what your interests are, there's probably a Fulbright for you. And if there's not a Fulbright, then there is one of these other opportunities. So students can get, and especially once we're in the summer and you've received internal nomination and we're encouraging you every week to work in your application, a little bit of tunnel vision about the Rhodes and Marshall scholarships. What we want to constantly be reminding you of instead, though, is that there's so many other opportunities out there, so many exciting, cool, great opportunities, right? That may be a stepping stone to something else, but may also, open up for you a whole new passion. Maybe you do one of these ASF grants and you're just like, oh, wow, like I was always meant to go and, work in Iceland or something, every year, on Fulbrights and on other grants, we have students discover new interests and new directions for their lives. So I encourage you to consider all of these scholarships that we introduced you to today. And then also, and further, this is just a small drop in the bucket compared to what is out there. So the scholarships here are listed on our open fellowships page on the CRF webpage, and the rest of the scholarships that we've introduced today have their own respective pages on our webpage as well. But there are so many more that are beyond our extremely limited capacity to advise on and know about that you want to go out and seek. So I would just end this presentation by encouraging you to do your own research, because there really is a huge wealth of funding for postgraduate study abroad. And there are so many opportunities that are available for you, especially if you're competitive for Rhodes and Marshall. If you are willing to think beyond those two scholarships and your ultimate goal is to complete graduate study or an independent research project abroad, then almost certainly there will be a way for you to make it happen.
Yes. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions. There are a couple of questions in the chat. We'll start off with those first. And then, we'll open up the floor generally for questions. So the first question from Jessica, are those additional opportunities only offered to students that have already graduated? No, some of these programs are available regardless of your current graduation status. Each of these programs have different eligibilities or eligibility criteria. And including when you are eligible to apply, whether you're a current student, a graduate, how far out from graduation. So you do need to look at each of these programs that you're interested in to double check what your eligibility is. So just be mindful of that, right? Some of these programs are only open to students of a particular year. So like only open to juniors or only open to seniors or only open to alumni, right? So you have to be very mindful of those things. On our website, we make sure that we have all of the basic eligibility kind of laid out for you. So at least you know that up front before you start to dive a little bit deeper into them. But of course, as Jonathan noted, we are not the end all be all. We do not have we don't have information for every single fellowship opportunity that is out there. So as you are looking at fellowships that maybe are not advertised through us, or that you hear about from wherever you may hear about things from, faculty members, the Career Center, other supervisors, past volunteers, even your friends, right? You want to make sure that you're really looking at every single piece of the eligibility criteria to ensure that you are eligible for those scholarships or those fellowships. So, but no, all of the ones that we discussed kind of vary in terms of when you can apply to those. Question from Bella, is there advising happening Thursday and Friday? Yes. So Thursday, we are doing advising. While break starts for students on Thursday and goes through Tuesday, the university otherwise is open Thursday and Monday. So the university is closed on Friday. No one is working, no one is here, no one will be answering emails probably. But Thursday, this Thursday, March 28th, and Monday, April 1st, we will be available for advising. And so if you are looking to submit an advising appointment, feel free, please go ahead, put that in as your availability as needed. Other questions from folks? Yeah, y'all have a few days. We have a 3-day weekend. Yes, unless you're traveling, in which case some folks will end up taking Monday off. But any other questions from folks?
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, but I have a question, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. For the study programs, how often have you found like luck for students that are kind of aiming to pursue a master's degree in something that isn't directly correlated with their undergraduate major?
Ooh, good question. Define not correlated.
Okay,
how far are we going?
Well, okay, so in my personal kind of situation, I'm a biochem major, public health minor, but I'd want to pursue an MPH. So would the fact that I'm only a minor in public health be like a barrier? Are they looking mainly for majors? Okay.
No, I mean, it is dependent, right? It is dependent from program to program, from fellowship to fellowship, and even like in terms of the graduate programs themselves, it depends, right? On what prerequisites they are requiring, what expectations there are. However, it's related enough, right? And especially when it comes to programs that are quite interdisciplinary, or fields that are quite interdisciplinary, having different kinds of backgrounds entering into those types of programs, and thus into that type of work, is often, very much not only accepted, but often, something that committees are looking for, that search committees are looking for. So, they less want to see, do you have this like very, very specific degree, unless they specifically call that out in the eligibility criteria, and more, how are you relating this program, this master's program, to your work? How is it related to, like, how are you kind of going to use those skills from your major in this graduate program later on? And also, how do you kind of see those things interconnected in your larger sort of goals that you've set? And hopefully that was helpful for other folks too, whose undergraduate majors might not align directly exactly with potential graduate programs that you're pursuing, but there are definitely relations there. All right. Other questions? And you don't have to raise your hand, y'all. You can just unmute yourselves. That's fine. Oh, another question from Jessica. What is the best way to reach out to Georgetown students that have been accepted to these different programs? You have forms of formal or informal mentoring. Unfortunately, right now, through the center, or I should say, through the center, in terms of informal mentoring, we will, connect folks who are applying to various programs to alumni, if those alumni have noted that they would be interested, willing, able to do that, to connect with current students. There's no formal mentoring program, that we have sort of set up in that way, but each individual program, right, there are ways that we do and can get you connected with various alumni. Also, a lot of these programs have alumni databases on their websites. So Fulbright has an alumni database on their website, and so you can reach out to not just Georgetown students, but other recipients of the U.S. Fulbright student program. I believe, let me see, I know at least a handful of the other ones. I believe CLS has an alumni database. Yeah, there are quite a few of these programs that, like, either themselves, like the organizations or foundations that run these programs themselves often have a lot of alumni databases that you can then search, or if you contact us and let us know, especially as you are working on applications, we may get you connected with alumni through sort of the different advising processes that we have here. But that is to say, we don't have one formal mentoring program. We kind of spread that out across different scholarship and fellowship programs. Great. Anyone else have any other questions for us?
Nope. Well,
Okay. Yeah.
As always, we're accessible by email if a question comes up. Please reach out to fellowships@georgetown.edu or either of our personal emails, which I'll drop my net ID in chat.
And I'll also throw mine. Oh, yeah, never mind. For a second, I had to think about what my net ID was.
Wonderful.
Yes. Okay. So yes. Thank you so much, folks. There are 2 folks that asked if they could stay behind. That is okay for those 2 folks. But the rest of y'all, if you have questions, you can just follow up with Jonathan and I at another time. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.